There is something inherently innocent about a child's homework, the messy handwriting, the struggled through math problems, but sometimes that innocence splatters directly into the middle of a gruesome crime scene. On May 7th, police in Madhya Pradesh were called to the Bhopal-Jabalpur highway. Right underneath the Survar Bridge, someone had dumped a sack. Inside the sack was a heavily decomposed human body. The victim's hands and legs had been bound, and their mouth was securely taped shut. This was a deliberate, calculated effort to delay discovery. The killers also stripped the corpse of anything that could tie it to a name. There was no wallet, and there was no phone. Absolutely zero identification of any kind left on the victim. In criminal investigations, this is known as a blind murder. By removing all identifying features and dumping the body near a busy transit route, the perpetrators engineered the scene so the victim would remain nameless and the case would remain unsolved. With the body offering zero answers, investigators expanded their search outward, scanning the dirt and scrub brush immediately surrounding the dumping site. They found exactly 2 items of interest. First, a discarded grocery receipt from the town of Saiketa, and second, a small battered notebook, what locals call a rough book, belonging to a child. Initially, police figured the notebook was completely unrelated. When you are standing on the side of a highway, finding a piece of windblown trash is the most common thing in the world. The receipt, however, gave them a physical location. Saiketa was an actual town in the Narsingpur district. Police started looking into how someone from that specific area might have ended up on the highway. But focusing only on the receipt missed a critical reality of forensic science. Even the most ordinary pieces of discarded trash carry a unique geographic and personal footprint. When investigators finally opened the rough book, they noticed the pages didn't look like standard classwork. Different subjects, math sums, Hindi notes, were written randomly and haphazardly across the exact same pages. But among the scribbles, there was a deliberate pattern. Each page carried short, distinct red checkmarks alongside a rushed, repeated signature. Public schools usually follow rigid formats for grading. This specific, rapid-fire checking style strongly suggested the book was being used during private tuition classes. Police took photos of that specific signature and the child's handwriting. They then blast messaged those images across local school groups, tuition circles, and WhatsApp chats in Saiketa. At the same time, officers hit the pavement. They went door to door through the town, carrying physical photocopies of the pages, asking shopkeepers and residents if they recognized the penmanship. The perpetrators had focused entirely on hiding the victim's identity. By shifting the investigation to the origin of the notebook instead, the police effectively bypassed the killer's entire defense strategy. After days of circulating the images, a local tutor recognized the rushed signature as his own. The tutor reviewed the handwriting and matched it to a specific 10-year-old student in his class. For the first time, police had a concrete name and a home address. Local investigators rushed to the family's house to ask why the boy's workbook was at a murder scene. They arrived to find the property completely locked up and abandoned. People don't typically pack up and vanish for no reason. That sudden flight escalated the family from potential witnesses to the primary suspects in a homicide. A multi-city manhunt began. Police leaned on local informers, tracking movements across various districts until cornering them in Ujjain. This discarded notebook acted as a tracking beacon, forcing the suspects out of their safe house and into the path of the police. Back in the interrogation room, the suspects tried to maintain their innocence. They claimed the rough book was just trash, arguing that it could have been picked up and dumped there by absolutely anyone. But investigators had already sent the notebook to the lab. Forensic analysts found microscopic droplets of human blood speckled across the child's messy notes. The suspects couldn't explain away their child's blood-stained homework resting right next to a bound corpse. Faced with that undeniable physical link, their story completely fell apart, and they confessed. An alibi is only a story, and humans can tell stories indefinitely. Note when physical evidence directly contradicts the foundational logic of that story, the psychological weight usually forces a confession. The confession finally gave the victim a name. He was Papu, a man from Rajasthan, and he was the new romantic partner of the 10-year-old boy's mother. The murder was the result of a bitter love triangle. The mother had conspired with her former lover, a man named Arun Patel, and a third accomplice to permanently eliminate her new partner. The trio went to meticulous, cold-blooded lengths to bind Papu, disguise his body, and erase every trace of his identity. Yet, in the middle of executing their crime, they carelessly dropped her son's math homework right at the scene. Criminals often believe they can outsmart the system by scrubbing a scene of identity, but the perfect blind murder is a myth. The human element is messy, and it leaves behind traceable anchors.